So when we're working with an organization and we think about what good looks like, there's obvious areas to start. You think about what we used to call culture fit or the behaviors, which is the second thing on the left there. That's something we do a lot of work around, helping companies translate values or competency models into something a little more specific. But I have a lot of hiring managers in my career who said, just go hire me someone smart. Just hire me someone smart. I need someone smart. What does that mean exactly, right? There's so much data and research that says that your marks, your grades in college don't necessarily predict whether or not you're going to be effective on the job. There's people that are book smart that aren't street smart. There's a lot of proxies we use for smart, where you went to school, maybe your family background. We make decisions based on your height, your gender. There's your communication style. There's so many things people use as a proxy for smart. I spent a lot of time at Amazon in the early days just defining, what does smart mean? Like, what do we mean by smart? Because people get confused around that. Getting into the skills and knowledge, when you're trying to define what it looks like at a job description level, what is the critical skills and knowledge? We all do that. That's on job descriptions. That's good. But have you really thought about what's trainable? Have you really thought, does it matter? I literally had a hiring manager say to me once that when they were interviewing a candidate in a finance role, what version of Excel has the person used? And I said, why would that matter? Well, because we're using version, I don't remember, 11.5. And I'm like, and if they used 11.4, they're not qualified? And he goes, I just really want someone that can hit the ground running. And I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. What difference does it make what version of Excel? How hard would it be for someone that knows a version of Excel to learn the latest version? It would be minor. And I've literally had hiring managers tell me they want to decline a candidate because of something as silly and stupid as that. A lot of terms like executive presence aren't well defined. We talked about diversity. Pedigree is a huge issue. There's a lot of people that use pedigree, where you went to school, what company you worked at, to determine if you're good. That has a huge negative impact on diversity for a lot of organizations, a lot of people. Getting really clear about achievements, what's realistic for someone to have achieved. There's a lot of organizations that are focused on behavioral interviewing techniques, which we teach in our hiring manager training. Tell me about a time you blank, right? Built something, delivered something, sold something challenging. But getting really clear on what those achievements are. A lot of times that doesn't show up in the job description. And so many interviewers just grab the CV, the resume off the laser printer, they grab the job description, they go into the interview, and they just kind of compare the two. And if the job description hasn't articulated, what should this person have built already? What should they have sold? What kind of problems have they solved? If it's not translated into achievements, you get people that get hyper-focused on things like Excel and what version of Excel you've used. Getting really clear about potential. What we mean by potential, I have a lot of hiring managers say, oh, he's really high potential. Sometimes that's used to discriminate against people over 40. Potential means young, potential means male, potential means like me for some interviewers. That's a problem. One of my friends who is head of recruiting at a well-known company, he presented on a stage and he talked about this concept I've never heard, which is distance traveled. And the idea with distance traveled is, rather than just looking at someone and looking at their pedigree, did they go to the right school, did they work at the right company, really understand, where's the person come from and where did they get to? If this person you're interviewing is a first generation, no one in his family, no one in her family had ever gone to university before, and they went to a good school but not the best school, that's pretty impressive. If you have someone who has pulled themselves out of poverty and has worked in a company, even if they didn't have a big title, but they've worked in a company, they got in, they worked hard, had great reviews, that's pretty impressive. That might be more impressive than someone who is a fifth generation top university candidate. More impressive than someone who has grown up in Silicon Valley and all of her dad's friends worked at Google and Facebook and wherever, and it wasn't that big of a deal for her to get into one of those companies, versus someone that grew up in a place where they didn't have that kind of opportunity. And then passion is often poorly defined. There's a lot of preference for extroverts and people that are going to be passionate in the interview. And it's really interesting how often that's misinterpreted, how often passion is poorly defined. And what people look at is, are you energetic? Are you like me? Are you passionate like me? Or even worse, are you in love with our company? Like, we actually decide that you would or wouldn't be good for a job based on how much you love our company. And there's a lot of organizations that think candidates are dying to work for you and they're dying to work on your product. You have an opportunity and obligation to sell candidates. You need to tell a lot of the best candidates on earth, they're already working at a great company. They're already passionate about their craft. That's why you're interested in them. So how do you get them interested in your company? I joke about this ass factor, but it is really interesting how many companies say they don't want to hire an ass. I love that. I don't think we should hire asses, but what do we mean by ass? I had a chief marketing officer at a well-known company tell me, John, I don't want asses, but I want people that are going to challenge us. I want people that are going to push on us. I don't want to bring someone in that's a yes man, a yes woman, agreeing with everything we've done. We are not going to innovate. We are not going to transform our company if we don't have more people that are willing to challenge. And that may be misinterpreted as someone being an ass, but that's exactly the kind of talent profile we need, or we are not going to make it to the next level in our business. Now, this is the chief marketing officer sharing this with me. What are the chances the chief marketing officer has pushed that message down all the way through his VPs, directors, senior managers, frontline interviewers? It is challenging, and I think that's the kind of thing we need to be more explicit around. And then seniority, is it possible someone at your company with 7 years of experience could outperform someone with 9 years of experience? If someone's been doing something 10 years, does that mean they're necessarily senior or great? No. So getting really clear on what we mean by seniority or what we mean by kind of good enough experience. And then the last thing, which is kind of like smart, what does A player mean? Like, people nod and say they're looking for an A player. A lot of times people have a bias to hire people just like them. They think of themselves as an A player, of course, and they want to hire people just like them. And we haven't defined that very well. So big opportunity for talent acquisition leaders, for recruiters, HR leaders. How do you define what good looks like? And I don't just mean your competency model. I don't just mean years of experience and degree requirements. I mean, really getting into these things. We pulled these things by analyzing debrief meetings where hiring decisions were getting made. And we started to recognize there's some really common things that we're not aligned on that are being used to make decisions. After all this great interviewing we did, you get to the final 20-minute discussion on the candidate and people are voting and whatever. And a lot of times it comes down to these very things that are shared here, but they're not well defined. And if they're not well defined, how are you hiring people that meet the bar? How are you hiring people that raise the bar? You haven't defined the bar. That's a really big opportunity area.